Oh, hi, hi. Sorry, I was just looking for my I was looking for my red wine. Where is it? Ah, here it is. Today we're gonna talk about dark skinned women versus light skinned women, and there is a kind of war out there between the two. Now you get a lot of light skinned women who, when they talk about their school days, they talk about the trouble they had from the black girls, from the dark girls towards them. The you think you're nice, innit? And the jealousy. Where is this coming from? Where is this coming from? Why did these, especially if they were outnumbered, these light skinned girls, have such a hard time if they were outnumbered by the dark skinned girls, black skinned girls in schools? I've heard so many stories about bullying, about hair pulling, about abuse coming from girls. If there's a lot of light skinned girls and a few dark girls, it would come from the light skinned girls towards the dark girls. If there's a lot of dark girls and less light skinned girls, it will come from the dark girls towards the light skinned girls. So there's a battle going on between the two. Why? Well, the answer to that question is very simple. Slavery. Slavery is the answer to basically all black problems. The racism that was created by the transatlantic slave trade. Let's get it right. The transatlantic slave trade. We're not talking about the Islamic slave trade because that was different. If you was a slave in Islam, you could end up running a country. You had eunuchs running the Ottoman Empire, black slaves running the Ottoman Empire. You had slaves who ran Egypt for 300 years. The Mamluks ran Egypt for 300 years. A Muslim could not enslave another Muslim. So if you converted to Islam, you were free. If you were a slave in Christianity, that was a whole different ballgame. Especially if you was a slave under the British or the French. That, once again, was a whole different ballgame. Because then we got this coming into it. The colour of your skin. In Islam, I am not a Muslim. Okay, let's get that straight. This is what I'm telling you about history. In Islam, there is no colour, there's no race. Racism was invented by the British, the French and the Germans. They called it eugenics. They invented racism to justify what they were doing. Before that, black people were very prominent, as I've showed you already, with the Coptic Christians. The first Christians were in Egypt, the Coptics. And this is the Black Madonna and Child. And the Black Madonna and Child spread throughout Europe. This is one of the most famous Black Madonnas and Child in Poland. So you had them in Poland, in France, in Spain, in Germany, in Switzerland, in Austria. You had white Europeans worshipping the Black Madonna and Child. They never questioned the colour of her skin. As far as they were concerned, she was the real McCoy. That all changed when Christopher Columbus bumped into the West Indies in 1492. That all changed. So now, the first slaves were prisoners of war of the Spanish and the Portuguese. I say prisoners of war because the Moors, black people, and the Arabs, the Muslims, had run Spain for 700 years. The Spanish finally kicked them out in 1492. So you got 700 years of black and Arab people running Spain. So they were enemies. So those first black slaves were prisoners of war. And that is what slaves were, always prisoners of war. Throughout man's history, they've been prisoners of war. Anyway, I'm getting away from the black girl, white, the dark skin, light skin. Okay, so we're on this plantation now. You got the dark woman. Now, let me show you. This is the stereotypical dark woman. This is Hattie McDaniel. She played the mammy in many films in the 1930s and 40s in Hollywood. She played the stereotypical fat black mammy who would look after the white family, look after the wife, look after the children, look after Scarlett O'Hara. That's her. She's the stereotypical mammy. But she was not a beauty. The dark-skinned black woman was never deemed to be a beauty. Now, when they got over there to the Americas, there was a lot of raping going on from the white men raping the black women. The masters, the soldiers, overseers, sailors, you name it, they raped them. In the west coast of Africa, in the slave forts, they had raping rooms where the women were even raped before they even got on the ship and before they even got over the sea. So we had a lot of mixed race children being born. So this was creating different colours. You know, had dark people from Africa and you had the lighter ones who were born in the Americas. This now started to create a separation. The darker you was, you worked in the field. You had a hard life. The lighter you was, you managed to get in the house. Some of these masters who had fathered these mixed race children looked after these children, brought them into the family as best they could, not completely into the family, but they favoured them. They treated them better. So now you've got the mixed race women who are being courted by white men. Because that woman's father might be Massa Thompson or Massa Lee, she got a little bit better treatment from the white man who was courting her. And a lot of these women ended up being looked after in houses. Say in Kingston, they would be bought their own house. Now, I'll show you a picture here. Where is it? Oh my God. Now, this is from a film called Showboat. He was a white gambler. Her name's Ava Gardner, but she's supposed to be playing a mixed race woman who was having an affair with the white gambler, and he was having an affair with a white woman. So he had a white woman on one side and his mulatto woman, his Creole, his mistress on the other, his light-skinned black woman. Now, she was supposed to be played by this woman, Lena Horne, who was a mixed-race black woman. Now, this was the face of beauty as far as black women were concerned in the early 20th century. She didn't get the part, because even though she managed to get a Hollywood contract and she was appearing in a lot of Hollywood films, but only singing, that wasn't enough for her to play the part in a major role. So her part was given to a white woman, the darkest white woman they could find who could pass as mixed race. So now you see what's happening. The lighter skinned women are being treated better than the dark skinned women. In fact, the dark skinned women aren't being treated nice at all. But if you had light skin, you could work your way up that ladder. This is Dorothy Dandridge. Now, we're into the 1950s. She was in Hollywood as well. She played some major roles. Carmen Jones, Porgy and Bess. This was deemed as black beauty. This was deemed as black beauty. One of her contemporaries, Sarah Vaughan. This is a dark-skinned black woman. She's a singer, Sarah Vaughan. But you never saw Sarah Vaughan like you saw Dorothy Dandridge. I didn't know what Sarah Vaughan looked like until a few years ago, when I finally saw her picture. I've heard her song, I've got her albums. Even on her album cover, she doesn't look like this. Dark. You just didn't see her. But Dorothy Dandridge was the face of a black woman that was promoted as beautiful. So you've got the media throwing that at you. You've got the black women, the light-skinned people trying to get away from the darkness, trying to get away from what they called the mammy in the closet, the grandmother in the closet. This is from a film called Imitation of Life. This is the black mother and this is her mixed race child. All through the film, her mixed race child hates her mother. She hates being black. She wants to get away from her mother, and indeed she runs away from her, and her mother spends most of the film looking for her daughter. Her daughter meets a white man who she plans to marry and is going to marry until someone tells him that she's actually black, and then he beats her up. Her mother finally finds her and she blames her mother for what has happened to her. And she says she never ever wants to see her mother again, and she gets away from her. Her mother dies of a broken heart. Her daughter hears that her mother has died and she rushes to the funeral and sees the coffin and she throws herself on the coffin, crying her eyes out, begging her mother for forgiveness. So you got the mixed race, light skin, black woman trying to get away from the dark skin mother, from the mammy in the closet, from her past. So this is going on for hundreds of years now. You've got the battle between the light skin looking above the dark-skinned, telling them what to do because they've got permission from their fathers that they could tell the dark-skinned ones what to do now. So in us, we got this memory of it. And so when the girls meet, they clash. Because the black dark girls still see the light-skinned girls getting the preferential treatment. They still see them in the videos, getting, like in the hip-hop videos, being populated by them. They still see them in the movies, being the romantic lead against the dark black man and the light woman. In all Eddie Murphy's films, I only ever saw him with one dark woman as his wife. All his other wives were always light-skinned. When you watch The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the girls he always goes after are always light-skinned. America is terrible for doing this. Always light-skinned women. My daughter was very upset the other day because she read a book about a dark-skinned black girl and it's been made into a film. And then she saw that the actress playing the part in the movie was a light-skinned actress. And my daughter was not happy about it at all. She gets a lot of abuse from black boys who tease her for being black, or blick as they call it. Because I tell them they've been brainwashed. They've had no positive images of dark black women. The only dark black woman I can name to you is Hattie McDaniel, who appeared in films. I can't find her now. When you think of films, this is the only dark black-skinned woman who was promoted in Hollywood movies. You cannot name another. I'm a film buff, and no matter how hard I think, I cannot name another. So dark-skinned women, and not just them, everybody had no images of dark-skinned women to look up to. They were only ever given this and this. And so now the boys see this as the ideal and not this. And all this came about because of rape, because of slavery, because of masters giving birth to mixed race girls and boys and treating them better. And those mixed race children looking down on the mothers who gave birth to them. As I showed you in Imitation of Life. Those mixed race daughters looking down on their black mothers. The shame of it. Because this is what they could get. A good life. That is why we have the battle between dark skin and light skin women. And that is why dark skin women are treated badly. Slavery.